So welcome to Simpler Living PEI, and if you haven't been here before, my name is Tammy, and I just kind of share my simple little life here. So today, though, we are sharing my belated birthday. Now, seems a little weird, I'm canning tomatoes on my birthday, but the way it works is for me, I do what I find relaxing. And it has taken a little bit of time and a few years for me to kind of get this tomato routine down. So I've gotten it to the point where I can easily do a good half bushel of tomatoes like I did all on my own. And it actually works out pretty well. Now, I did start this day really early, so I barely even touched my first coffee yet. So, anyway, just so you know, when I do tomatoes, I do follow all the safe canning practices from the National Center for Home Preservation. But when I do it, like I said, I do it by myself. So I don't waste the time by taking the cores out. I just cut off the tops, put the little X on the bottom, and then we get them in the blanch and kind of go from there. You can kind of see Freddie helping me out, making sure we don't have any bad tomatoes in that box. And this box turned out to be a phenomenal box of tomatoes. There were quite a few little ones, so ones that were a little too tiny, I put them in the freezer for the spaghetti sauce and the tomato sauce later on in the year. But either way, I got them done, and we got a lot of jars out of this little half box, so it worked out pretty well. Excuse me, sorry. But anyway, when you go in, you've got the water blanching. Now what I do is I've got my big stock pot there with really cold water. I ran out of ice cubes, or else I would have ice cubes in there. But all I really do is I go in and I blanch them. When they're ready, they go in the pot. Now when you're doing it alone, I get them all in the pot and I just let the water keep them covered. You don't have to worry about things like fruit flies or basically anything. The water like seals it in. If you kind of get my drift, I think, at least I hope you do. But it does take some time when you're doing it alone. By the time I finished, I think it was a good 8 or 9 hours worth of work, but don't get me wrong, you have a lot of time in between where you can get things done. I only have the one canner. I gotta get another canner, but when you only have the one canner, you do have to give it enough time to slow down, enough time to cool down, because if you take them out too soon, you're gonna ruin the seal, right? But that being said, my canner, I put 7 jars in at a time because that's just the size of it, so. I am not the fastest canner in the world. Anyway, like I was saying, as long as you get them in something and keep them covered, you can take your time. You don't have to rush. I do cold packed tomatoes, and I just find that really easy. So right about now, this is where Freddie says, hey, are you going to feed me? So the camera was there. It was still rolling. I just left a little piece in. So French toast and bacon. That's that no-knead bread, by the way. Phenomenal. Anyway, like I was saying, this is my belated birthday, so we're actually making a trifle in lasagna for dinner. So yeah, it's a busy day. That is the good old-fashioned bird's custard. I'll tell you about it later on as well. It's not necessarily a custard I use a lot. I just can't cook custard to save my life. It's basically cornstarch flavor milk, and I add a little bit of vanilla because I like the extra. It's a simple little thing. It's something you can keep in the pantry. Works great. But anyway, I'll link the company info for the bird's custard down below so you actually see what I'm talking about, okay? Now, when it comes to the actual tomatoes themselves, once you get them blanched, you got to start peeling them. Now, that's all of the tomatoes. So, like I said, I do cold pack them. So they get peeled, they get shoved in the jars, and then they kind of go from there. Now, some people do keep the actual tomato skins and dry them. I'm thinking the next box of tomatoes I might try it because apparently it's a really concentrated tomato flavor. So I do have the dehydrator, so no harm. Let's give it a shot, right? But from what I'm told, you dry out the skins, some nice good ones, no blemishes, nothing like that. Throw them in your whizzer, throw them in your blender, do whatever, and basically you turn them to dust. So we might have to try that together. No harm in, right? Now the tomatoes themselves, if you're unsure about the acidity of tomatoes, put a little bit of lemon juice in it. You're not going to hurt anything. Higher pH is better than a lower pH. Remember, when you water bath, it's all about acid. Acid helps it, keeps it safe. Acid helps keep the preservation. I'm kind of tripping over myself. Sorry about that. And, oh yeah, this is the second batch. I had actually forgotten I put the second batch in there. Sorry about that, guys. But either way, like I said, it's not that bad. Keep the tomatoes in the pot. Keep them covered. You can keep right on going. Now, on to lasagna. You can actually, the reason why I left this here is you can actually see my steam canner just chugging away over there. I have burnt myself on that little tiny steam nozzle. If you have a steam canner, trust me, be careful. Just saying. Now that first batch, 2 jars did not seal. They were still hot when I put them in there too, because I was a fool and decided to do that. You got the tomatoes, instead of processing them again, which in my opinion, when you process them that second time, they just come out too done. So might as well use them up, and we're making lasagna. And yeah, I'm using a cheater can of spaghetti sauce because, hey, it does need to get used up. We have it, might as well use it up. And some of our shredded zucchini. You have to get your veggies in now, guys. Let's use the shredded zucchini. And then, of course, I got the garlic and the onion and my marinara spice, because if you're going to cook something, it might best taste good. And yes, it did taste really, really good. So we've got the second batch of tomatoes in the canner, getting ready to go. And we're going to make a trifle, because when we did the peaches, we had 1 jar that did not seal. We've got some unset jelly, might as well use it. Now the only thing that kind of sucks about the pound cake that we got is it's a lemon cake, but it's not a super strong lemon flavor. So I'm gonna make my trifle. Basically, it's my late birthday treat. So let's make ourselves some dessert, okay? Alrighty. So now the jelly that didn't set, we are going to put some of that. Oops, if I can get the lid off. There we go. We're gonna put some of this jelly that didn't set on here. We're gonna give it a bit of a stir. Just so you know, this jelly came out really, really well, flavor-wise. Now, too bad it just didn't set. Now, I didn't make whipped cream. We have got that, you know, stuff you buy in a container. Gonna give that a bit of a smear on top. Now I'm building this trifle a little bit backwards compared to the way I normally make them, but mostly because we're using those peaches and I didn't want it to sog it all up. And like you already saw, this is that bird's custard. Now, I admit I'm really terrible at making custard, never have been good at it. So I tend to cheat, and I either use the birds, which is the stuff that I grew up with actually, or I use the President's Choice stuff, the Devon custard or Devon cream or whatever it's called. I honestly do not remember. Alrighty. Peaches. Now these peaches too got a little overcooked. But they smell phenomenal. Alrighty, now let's get the syrup, jelly, whatever you want to call it. Now if you don't want to put fruit in your trifle, don't put fruit in your trifle. If you like to use like a brandy syrup or like a liqueur, use it. I just like fruit trifles. This one, because we're using jelly instead of a syrup, though, this is going to be really sweet. Kind of no way around that one. There we go. Nope. Let's put the custard back on. We're going to use the custard. There we go. And then the whipped topping on the top. Well, guys, one peach trifle for dinner. Hopefully it tastes good. All the ingredients tasted good. Now let's hope it tastes good together. Time to continue on with our lasagna and our canning. It's been a busy day. Well, here was our final result. Beautiful lasagna for dinner, and we have 18 jars of tomatoes. Those ones haven't settled yet because they're still pretty warm. I might have to get some more tomatoes. Man, do they ever came out good. But then again, those 2 jars that did not seal, they're going to taste pretty good too.